you for joining us. Sorry for being a little bit late. Trying to get everybody down here. It's a privilege for me today to introduce to you Higher Ed partners. We've got Neal and Nick. It's absolutely a pleasure to have you here. You've been long-standing members of Penduring, the WorkSpace, since 2018.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for your support. And we're all very excited to hear what kind of business you are doing. We have think about all the questions we have for you, and it would be nice for us just to relate and see what it's all about. I assume, Neal, you're going to do the presentation for us.
Yeah, Nick will do a bit of an intro and then
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Pleasure. Thanks. Thanks very much. Thanks everyone. Good to. I was going to say good to see you, but I can't see you. But good to be here. My name is Nick Kendall. I am the CEO of Higher Ed Partners. We've been operating in South Africa since 2017, and we've been here in Penduring Road with WorkSpace since 2018. Our business is online higher education. So we're in quite a progressive business and I think quite a good space commercially. We partner with universities and help them take their degree programs, some of their degree programs, fully online. So obviously when COVID came along 3 years ago, this was a good space to be, an interesting space, because most of our universities wished they'd started 10 years earlier. Yeah, that's essentially what we are. We're a part of an American business that does the same thing all around the world. And we brought that to South Africa as I say, in 2017. So we're based here. We have a hybrid working, especially post-COVID, a hybrid working model where some of our staff are permanently here, and some permanently at home, and some do, a couple of days here, a couple of days at home. But the essential operation, which is under my colleague Neal Jeptha, is based here. So I'm going to hand over to Neal, who's our Director of Enrolments and Operations. He's going to tell you a little bit more about the nuts and bolts of our business, and then we'll do a Q&A.
Thanks, Nick.
So over to you.
Thanks, Emilian. So, as Nick said, I've got a very fancy definition for what we do. So we help universities expand access to high quality and affordable tertiary education through technology enablement in terms of their learning. So 100% fully online learning. So why do we do what we do? So even before COVID, in this country and other countries in Africa, there's an issue with both space constraints as well as accessibility and affordability in terms of tertiary learning. If I give you just two examples, two of our partners, University of Johannesburg, they've got space for around 10,500 first-year students in the contact learning in a classroom environment. They get 135,000 applications a year. So how many students they have to reject, you can imagine. That's a little bit less. They've got space for about 7,000 students. They get 70,000 applications a year, and so forth and so on. So on a yearly basis, there are hundreds and thousands of students in this country that have to sit out for another year, find alternatives, go work, whatever. So we had to address that. And then obviously with the advent of COVID, that exacerbated the situation, even more so. So how do we do what we do? So we've been around, as Nick said, since about 2016 in this country, and we partner with public universities to take their fully accredited, that's an important note to make, that programs are fully accredited by the Council for Education, South African Qualifications Authority, SAQA, and we take those programs and we take them fully 100% online. Some of our partners, we've really, I think, cornered the market in this country: University of Pretoria, University of Johannesburg, Tshwane University of Technology, BITS, Durban University of Technology. That's to name a few in South Africa. And then we have partners in Kenya and partners in Ghana as well. How does our model then address the issues I listed above, the accessibility issues, and the challenges with space and the challenges with affordability? Well, for one, we've got 6 intakes a year where your traditional university's got 1 or 2 semesters where students can start. Okay, so, and then making so that speaks to the accessibility issue. The other thing is that we allow students to pay by the module. So it's like a pay as you go. When you look at our programs, they're normally structured around 8 weeks per module. So within a year, you can actually do, you can join the course 6 times, or you can start a new module 6 times. We've got a carousel model, you can jump on, jump off. So in terms of your learning, you always, there's always a module for you that you can move on to within a year. So I think why we exist is because we traditionally perform the functions that public universities, they either can't do, or they don't have, or they're not able to, or perhaps they're not good at. So things like what Jeptha would do is we would facilitate the online program design, market the programs, enroll students into the program, also retain students into the program, which is quite unique. And then we will see to it that we are responsible for the launching of those projects, the launching of those programs, and we work very closely with our university partners in terms of our project management and support. As Nick said, we currently operate on a hybrid model. We've been here for a long time in the workspace. At any point in time, you'll see some of our staff in the office and some of our staff working from home. And it's been, I think, a great couple of years since 2016. We've really grown. I think still exciting journey ahead of us. Yeah, I think we can open up for questions.
Hey, any questions? Check them online as well. I think for me, the question is, we're all worried about education in South Africa.
Yeah.
Just from your perspective,
Yeah.
can you see that? Can you give us a little bit of assurance that we don't have to worry? Or do you think, or by actually offering these services, that they actually improve the quality of education in South Africa?
So funnily enough, I think it's, this model has been going in America for 20 years plus, and other parts of Europe for quite long. And all the surveys that they've done indicate that the success rate is actually higher on fully online education than on campus education. So the throughput rate to graduation is higher. It probably hasn't been going that long enough here to get good stats on that, but our indications are that the commitment, funnily enough, of an online student is just as high, if not higher. Many of the students are working professionals.
Yeah.
So they're doing this in their spare time. They're paying for it themselves. So the commitment is definitely there. And in terms of the quality of the actual curriculum, that's something we spend a lot of time with our partners developing and ensuring before we launch a program. That's why it takes us up to 6 months to launch a new program, because that design of the program and the quality checking and quality assurance needs to happen during that period. So I'm very confident that that fully online education is here to stay, and it's about expanding access. We live in a digital age. Many industries have been digitized, or who would have thought the taxi industry with Uber, the bed and breakfast industry with Airbnb. Why not the higher education industry? And we're part of that. Yeah. Yes.
Okay, so firstly, can I introduce you to my mom so you can explain to her that it's okay for me to go and study again? And then secondly, you guys find where's the interest level at for the guys that want to study for? Like, have you noticed any specific fields that people want to go into?
Yeah, do you want to pick that one up?
Yeah, I think people are open. So it's very difficult to answer that question because we've got a broad range of let's call it programs and interests. So someone might be more practical and sports orientated. So if you go to the University of Pretoria, we have a higher certificate in sports science that type of personality and that type of physical person will do. But then there are accountants like Nick, who might want to go into that route, and we've got to become accounting. And then of course you have your master's programs, and we have various specializations even in the master's. So accounting, finance, and HR. So what I do see, however, is a move. If you look at our master specializations, there's a move towards the cyberspace of things and the Internet of Things. And so cybersecurity, data analytics, and those things are becoming very, very popular as compared to your old conventional programs.
Yeah, just maybe adding to that, the range of programs we offer, and it's the university's program. So that's important to say. It's not our programs, it's their programs. We enable them and help them to take them fully online. But it ranges from higher certificates at NQF5 right through to MBAs. So you've got a range of people and students at different stages in their lives and careers. Obviously, your MBA students are generally working professionals, maybe in their late 20s, 30s, even older perhaps. Higher certificate would be a younger profile. But the common thing is fully online. And that's the important thing to understand, is you actually don't have to set foot onto a university campus once during your whole education journey. And the benefit there is a university can reach students from far and wide. And that's our job, is to recruit those students. So the University of Pretoria, you don't have to live anywhere near Pretoria to participate in these programs. You don't even have to live in South Africa. You can live in Zim, you can live in Africa, anywhere, as long as you've got connectivity.
Yeah. Except when you graduate, you'll come.
Yeah, generally they have at the end you have a graduation, which is usually on campus, and people like to come and receive the certificate. But actually, that's also a virtual event as well in parallel. So if you can't do that, you can virtually graduate as well.
You touch on affordability. I understand that is you study and you earn money and you can pay for it. And I can also see when you write books and you get it electronically versus the paper-backed one, the price is very close to each other.
Yeah.
Because of this intellectual property that's been built in.
Yeah.
Is it similar in your case with the universities offering these courses? Is the prices very less the same, and then the saving comes from all these other things of getting there and the accommodation, etc.?
Yeah, absolutely. The spot on. The tuition rate is generally similar, slightly below sometimes for online. The online is slightly cheaper because there aren't, the facilities at the campus that you have to offer. But against that, there is some work to be done to develop the online program. So you've got to recover that as well. But the advantage for the student, twofold. And to Neal's point, the one big advantage is pay as you go. So you don't have to pay for a qualification upfront. You don't have to pay for a whole year or half a year. You pay per module. And a module is generally about 7 weeks long. And you pay for that. And then you pay for the next module and so on. If you can't maybe afford, or for whatever reason you can't just go module to module like that, you can step out. You can take a break in your studies, and you can join back in when you can afford it again, or when your time allows you to. So this is a very flexible way of doing things, which I think adds to the affordability. And then, of course, there's no transport. You don't need to worry about accommodations. Most of our students do their studying either from home or from their place of work.
And I think just to add, if you're working individual, you've got two paydays to save up for your next module, because it's an 8-week module. So you've got 2 months in between modules. So modules cost you 4,000 rand. You put away 2,000 rand this month, another 2,000, and you take your next month. So that makes it quite convenient for working together.
Also ask the access criteria, you know, when you go to university, you hear this a lot, they only allow a number of students. So obviously that actually works in your favor when you can do it online. Do they actually change when you do a specific course that you can actually do still, criteria, it's still the same?
Well, unfortunately, the quality of the course has to go through the Council for Education and SAQA. So it's the same as any contact learning course within the university. So that mission criteria remains the same. The quality of the course remains the same. Yeah.
So if I can ask you a difficult question, how much, and let's take a university or maybe as general comment, how much has the online platform brought on students versus students actually going to the actual university? What's that ratio? Has it changed significantly?
So I think in the short term, it doesn't change that much. What it does is it increases the capacity of the university. Most universities are operating at maximum capacity for their campus. So they're restricted by the physical size of the campus, the accommodation that they have, and most of them are at max capacity. So let's say UJ has 60,000 students. It can't easily on campus have 70,000 students. It can't do that without building more infrastructure. There's also limitations that the government imposes around subsidies, where they cap and limit the subsidy that's going back to the university. So this is important because in the long term, you know, everything is under financial pressure, so as is that government subsidy. So, but the solution with the fully online is that it just gives them the ability to flex and increase that student cohort, because they don't have to come to campus and they don't have to provide facilities for them. They're literally the students, and even the teaching is asynchronous teaching. What does that mean? That means that there's very little live, in fact, no live teaching as such, not the traditional, you know, lecture, not even on Zoom. All of it is recorded and all of it is self-guided learning through using technology. So there's very little extra sort of work for the university to actually do to accommodate those fully online students. So it's a good, but it takes time. I mean, so it doesn't mean going online. It doesn't mean that universities are going to close their doors anytime soon and decide that's it. We no longer need. They'll continue with the campus. There'll always be some students, especially those that live close by, that get NSFAS grants, that want to go to university for that experience, and that's absolutely fine. That'll always continue, but that group can't really expand. The expansion is going to be, and the expansion to other territories is going to be through fully online, and that's what we're seeing at the moment.
Can I just add, there's a question for you.
So with online, I'm assuming that a lot of that you offer all theory-based academics like pharmacy and you wouldn't be able to study to become a doctor online.
Not yet.
Okay.
We do have hybrid. I'm speaking about the high certificate in sports science at the moment, where there's some practical element that you have to, and it does. You have to, as a student, you have to go to a soccer team, your area, or whatever the case may be. And there's some practical things that you need to do there. So no, not necessarily. There will. Our courses are also outcomes based. So at the moment, yeah, a lot of them are theory based. But I think it doesn't take away from the fact that there could be sort of a hybrid course where the outcome of what you're learning on the soccer field, just as an example, is measured, and that's measured for the whole year of the SCI certificate that I'm talking about now, with input from the coach and so forth, the feedback from the coaches and so forth. But yeah, there are restrictions. Obviously, being a doctor,
Yeah,
or
yes.
definitely there are going to be restrictions in taking those. It's not like doesn't mean you can't take certain modules or aspects of it.
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah, you're right.
yes,
There's definitely certain courses that more lend themselves to fully online. Some others might be hybrid, partly online, partly in the university, but fully online, you're right, it's certain types of courses.
I think the other question for me I want to ask is the exams the students write online versus at campus.
Yeah.
Are they the same?
So yeah, so yeah. I think two things there is the exams are when we do have exams, so when the university partner insists that there be an exam, the exam is the same, but obviously now you have to bring technology like proctoring tools to make sure that it's actually the student that's writing. And there's a whole validation and verification process, watching the student, checking what the environment looks like, to make sure that the student writing it. That being said, there's also a move for more outcomes-based education, where you have things like courses, assignments, theses, and things like that, to measure the amount of learning that you as opposed to sitting in a 3-hour exam and saying, here's a 500-page textbook, tell me what you remember out of this 500-page textbook. So I think yeah, the way I see the shift is that measuring measuring what they learn is more outcomes based, and it's more regular. So you do things like quizzes at the end of each module, assignments, projects, and syndicate work, things like that, to measure the outcome of your learning periodically, as opposed to at the end of a year or whatever the case may be. And let's see what you remember.
Okay.
Okay, just another question. Sorry, with you guys partnering with the universities, for example, like my brother is with Stokes and is with Stokes with Lux. We've learned that saying very quickly in the house. And when COVID hit, everything moved online.
Yeah.
Were you guys part of the adjustment to students on how to manage that? Is that completely the varsities thing? Could you offer something like that possibly as a product with your client base and say, let's make it easier?
Interesting time. I think everyone remembers that. I'm still in that area now where it sort of feels like a different time and a different space. But at other times, I remember very clearly, right, yeah, at that shutdown and looking at the streets, there was no traffic. But yeah, the universities were actually caught on the back foot. I think everyone was, not just universities, I think everyone was. Their response generally was to go online, but that meant that their big priority was to look after the academic year. So this happened in March, remember, the first shutdown was in March. And the big concern for the universities was, right, how are we going to get our students that have just joined or started their academic year on campus through to the end without too much disruption? So how they approached that was essentially to quickly learn skills around Zoom and Teams and each lecturer delivered their lectures through Zoom and Teams. Students had to find their way with technology to be able to access that. And obviously there were some teething issues, but generally speaking, most of the universities got that cohort of students in the first year of COVID and the second year of COVID through to the end, one way or another. Our product, if you like, is quite different. Our product needs, as I mentioned, 6 months to design. It is designed, it's not something, because there's no live teaching. So you actually have to design it and you have to create it. So I think the universities wished maybe that they'd started this journey 5 years ago, then it would have been going and students wouldn't have had to go to campus anyway. So it was in a way beneficial for us longer term, because I think it opened everyone's eyes to actually online education can work. in the short term, it was tough for us as well, because the university's immediate focus was on getting that cohort of students on the campus through to the end somehow. And that across all their different degrees that they offer. We only represent a fairly small handful of those degrees at this stage.
Because I've noticed, even like if you look at schools like St. City and St. John's,
Yeah,
your more private higher up schools,
yeah,
they've started now with their tablet teaching.
correct.
Instead of having a textbook, the kids walk around with a tablet.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
So that could also be something to,
actually online high schools
yeah.
that do Cambridge curriculum, and people choose to do. I know someone, personal sort of friends of ours, homeschooling their kids, and the homeschooling involves using online curriculum. It's maybe not for everyone. I also personally question, kids at school need socialization. There are other things that they get at school other than learning stuff, which is really important. That said, my friends who are homeschooling say, yeah, but you know what we do? We put our kids into clubs and societies, so they still do a lot of sport. They do a lot of music. They do their whatever hobbies and interests they have. They do in the afternoons. And they do their schooling curriculum till about 2 o'clock at home. So they do still socialise, but just through other ways. Interesting. I think that's a work in progress. I think that's may not be for it'll be very personal to the actual child, I think, at school level. Tertiary, though, which is where we are, we're only involved in the tertiary space. We're talking about adults, working professionals, and what is dying, I think, is the old way of doing adult education, which was either night classes, evening classes, or weekend releases, spend your Saturday at the university, evenings. People don't want to do that anymore. I think if you're working, you want to switch on, you want to do your work. You're studying online, you don't want to be going anywhere.
Degrees. University.
Yes, they're fully accredited. So yeah, if you walk through the contact center, which is here, some of my enrollment specialists will introduce themselves as good day, you're speaking, you've reached the University of Johannesburg. So we carry the brand for whichever our partner is, we carry that brand. And so yes, the degree, and that's why it takes such a long time, is because if I take a BCom accounting, we now have to put it through accreditation again by the Council for Education and SAQA for fully online or distance learning. So it's fully accredited. Same, you graduate just the same as a contact learning student. In fact, you graduate together at the same graduation ceremony. So completely. You do, but the structure of the module structure is different. So it's very difficult for someone to step in from a contact learning into a fully online experience. It's remember the contact learning program is structured for that entire period, and we've got eight big modules. So the total credits of the program are exactly the same at the end of the program, both programs. How it's broken up is different.
But what we do get is students that might have done an undergraduate degree on campus at Tuckies, and then they're working, and then they decide a couple of years later, I want to do a postgraduate or a master's, and then they come to us for that. Yeah.
How flexible are your packages with a student now working online? And then unfortunately, we look at South Africa with the load shedding, and then you're getting stage 6, we've got like three stages of load shedding a day. Obviously, it's huge responsibility to get through those courses.
Correct.
And now I think it's an online package, well-loaded.
Yeah.
And it's powerful science.
So all of our modules of study can either be done full-time or part-time. So you can select that. So a student that maybe is struggling with connectivity and load shedding, etc., might then decide to do part-time, which requires a certain number of hours per week over a 7-week period. But it's flexible when you do those hours, it's entirely up to you. It does not matter whether you do them at 9 o'clock in the morning or 9 o'clock at night or midnight or whenever. So, and a part-time is not that onerous in terms of those hours. So what we found is most people find their way around the load shedding because of the complete flexibility of when you actually can study. It's like everything else that we're all, load shedding affects all of our lives differently. We've all had to find our way around eating, sleeping, watching TV, all those things.
Solution for that, just some students at the WorkSpace. They can come here, please.
Well, it's interesting you say that, because the next evolution of this model could be to really reach students maybe in deeper rural communities without internet. As I mentioned at the beginning, a key criteria is you need connectivity to do this, and not everyone has that, as we know. So, but the evolution is to maybe have hubs in a particular area where students can come from the deeper rural areas to a physical hub that provides connectivity. That's all it needs to do. It doesn't have teachers, doesn't have anything like that, but it gives you a space and connectivity to do your work. So that's the next evolution, I think, to get students from without that access involved.
I think
Excellent.
another question from our side is, I always wonder, what message do you tell prospective students and prospective employers? What message do you think we should hear today to say, come and join, come and actually take up this? And I mean, we speak to individuals. How do you motivate people to say, in our age, what does that future looks like by doing an online course and an online degree? How do you go about that?
I think it's a lot of the students, to be honest, we're talking about digitally savvy people who've, maybe not my generation, not too many of my generation, your generation, actually prefer a digital environment to do things. So we're finding the motivation that we can offer comes from the flexibility of studying. I think that's huge. Everyone is time pressured and time stressed. And to have a flexible way of working in your own time, in your own place, whenever you're able to, is a massive draw card, I think, for young working professionals. And yet, the fact that they can do it at a competitive price that is a bit cheaper generally than going to a university, and the fact that they don't have to be anywhere near that university in terms of where they live or work, I think is a massive draw card. And that's certainly the experience we found with our students.
I think the last difficult question from my side is degree still relevant in this age we going forward in terms of AI and all the software that's available that's starting taking over our daily jobs? Is a degree still relevant?
Yeah. A degree for me is foundational learning and learning, teaching youngish minds to learn, to be able to learn. So I think a degree does still have relevance, both at a personal educational level to give you a foundation for future learning. I think that a degree maybe isn't sufficient anymore for a lifetime of learning. I think people start off with a degree, but your learning journey as you go through life should be continued and should be continuous education. And that doesn't necessarily mean further degrees. Not everyone wants to have a PhD or has the capacity to have a PhD, but there's short courses, there's professional vocational learning, there's many different types of learning, and a lot of it is online these days that you can do. But I think the degree does still provide foundation. So I think it is relevant. The second area of relevance is that for employers, it is still, to this day, a requirement to have for many jobs, to have a certain level of qualification. And while you can differentiate yourself after that building with doing more courses and being more qualified, I think that foundational qualification is often an entry requirement into the workplace as well. So I do think it's still relevant, yeah. Relevant, but maybe not sufficient for a whole lifetime.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think just to add to what Nick is saying is that you have that base, but we're also seeing a lot of unbundling of degrees, masters, etc., into taking the practical, for example, the practical modules out and presenting that as a short course or as a module. We're seeing a lot of that unbundling as well.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I think from the WorkSpace side, thank you very much. I think this was so informative and you really give me hope. I think flexibility, your answers were brilliant. Thank you so much. And thank you for everyone that's joined us. We thank you for your participation, and there's still some refreshments here. Come and join it with us. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks, Steve.
Thank you.
Environment. Great difference of a nice working environment.
Oh, we must keep it professional, huh? Thank you.
Right.